12:20. Okay, 12. How many I say 12:15 we end? We stop actually. Thank you. How many are saying 12:20? 12:20. Okay. So anyway, even before 12:20 we can end, isn't it? Thank you. We are thankful to God for his goodness and for his love. We appreciate the ministry again for our brothers, the Kozo, who have taken their time to be here from Thorn Park Main SDA Church. We sincerely appreciate. We are here again, continuing our stewardship month. And today we look at one segment where we are looking at Psalm 23. We are looking at Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. You can give a title, A Journey Through God's Care and God's Grace. A journey through God's care and through God's grace. That sermon has already been sent to the church clerk and our first elder. They will send it on our platforms. But there's nothing wrong for you to write notes. A journey through God's care. I'll read this slowly, Psalm 23, and then ask a question, and then we move forward. Psalm 23. It has got only 6 verses. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The question comes, between the shepherd and the sheep, who is speaking in this psalm? Yes, I can hear something. The sheep. The one who is speaking in Psalm 23 is the sheep. And the sheep is talking about whom? The shepherd. Now, that is very important for us to understand and to lay as a foundation for our talk, that the one who is speaking is the sheep, and the sheep is talking about the shepherd. You and I must be interested in this animal, the sheep. Why? Because from Genesis to Revelation, God only likens human beings to one animal. God likens human beings only to one animal. And what animal is that? The sheep. He doesn't liken you to a cow, to a goat, to a kangaroo, or any other animal. No. Just one animal, a sheep. Oh, we like sheep have gone astray. We are the sheep. I'm the good shepherd. You are the... God just likens human beings to sheep and no other animal. And that is very interesting for us to note. And we need to know the characteristics of a sheep and the characteristics of a human being. In other words, God is saying the characteristics of a sheep and the characteristics of a human beings are the same. The sheep and a human being, as far as God is concerned, he likens us to those two. We have got a lot of similar characteristics. From the psalm, we see or hear the Lord's provision. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want, or I shall not lack anything. In other words, the sheep is saying, with God, with the Lord, I have enough. Which comes back to our theme, God first, God last, and God best. That is what the sheep is saying. The sheep is saying, to me, God is first. To me, God is last. To me, God is best. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. When you are looking after sheep, the Bible tells us that it is the shepherd who makes the sheep to lie down. He makes me to lie down beside in what? What kind of pastures? Green pastures, soft pastures. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Sheep, by their nature, to lie down, for the shepherd to make the sheep to lie down, sheep must be free from 4 things. How many things? 4. One of them, sheep must be free from fear. Where the sheep are, the rat jumps, they all scatter. Any smallest disturbance, the sheep will run for their lives. So for a sheep to sleep, to lie down, they must be free from fear. The second one, sheep want to be free from friction. Just like any other animals. When the animals are there, they like fighting. The animals that want to dominate the others, they will fight this one. The other one is lying quietly. It will go there. But what happens is that when you're looking after these sheep, when the shepherd comes, they stop fighting. So for a sheep to sleep, it must be free from fear. It must be free from friction, from any fight. And it must also be free from parasites, from insects, ticks. Those who have kept animals know that whether it's dogs or cats, they don't want parasites, ticks, flies. And lastly, for sheep to lie down, they must be free from hunger. So it is the duty of the shepherd to make sure that the sheep are safe. And when he is present there, the sheep are comfortable. The sheep don't fight. And the shepherd makes sure that the animals do not have ticks by dipping them, by taking care of them. And finally, green pastures means they have got good nourishment. Green pastures and still waters. The imagery that we find here signifies nourishment and rest. It signifies nourishment and rest. Just as a shepherd finds the best feeding places, God provides for our spiritual sustenance. No wonder Jesus in John 7, verse 37, he said, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He gives us the best nourishment that can ever be found. Why? Because we are his sheep and he is our shepherd. When that picture escapes from your mind, that you are a sheep, he is a shepherd. When that picture escapes from your mind, you have a lot of restless moments in your life. You have a lot of worries in your mind. No wonder David, in his trials, in his challenges, he concluded, the Lord is my shepherd. And because he is my shepherd, I have enough. When the picture of you as a shepherd, as a sheep, the only sheep, and God your only shepherd, when it escapes your mind, you have got a lot of time to be awake in the night. And ask those questions. You remember our song, does Jesus care? If he cares, where is he in my trials? David says, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. To those who like English, the Psalm has got a lot of verbs, a lot of doing words. And it is the shepherd who is in action, not the sheep. But the one who is speaking, remember, is the sheep. Are you trusting in God's provision? Are you trusting in God's provision? Do you seek spiritual nourishment in His word? Or are you restless and anxious? God's grace is sufficient to meet all our needs. Paul was informed, my grace is sufficient. Paul says he prayed to God. How many times? 3 times. He said there was a thorn in my flesh. And I prayed to God 3 times. And he said, my grace is sufficient. It's enough. I'm not taking away the thorn, but my grace, my love is sufficient. I had a similar experience. In 1990, at our farm in Monze, we were handling animals, and then somehow I fell down. And this right hand went on the ground, and then a thorn pricked me. And I lived with that thorn until this year. First week of January, the thing was there. You could feel it, that there's something here. But now the pain was too sharp that in the middle of the night, I just woke up, I pressed it, and then the thorn came out. 34 years. My grace is sufficient for you. Even when I was living for South Africa, I was still on treatment for the same. The thorn that stayed for 34 years. In those 34 years, where was God? He was there on the throne and still loving me with my thorn in my flesh. He cares. He knows you. He knows what you are passing through. And He knows the best time. I'm not saying your challenge will take 34 years, but He knows the best time. The shepherd's guidance. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. I love David, and when you look at his Psalms, he would talk to himself. Do we have people here who talk to themselves? I thought I was the only one. David would ask himself, would talk to himself, my soul, why are you cast down? Why are you discouraged? He's talking to himself. Hope in God. Trust in God. Now, you can only understand this restoration when you know the behavior of a sheep. When David says, my soul, why are you cast down? When he says he restores my soul, one of the challenges that sheep have is that when the sheep becomes very fat, or when the sheep is pregnant, when it looks for a place to lie down, and then it misses that spot. So what will happen is that the sheep will be cast down. So being cast down, it means it will fall, the legs will be up. And when the sheep is in that condition, it cannot come on its feet on its own. So it will be in that position. So it is the work of the shepherd to always be on the lookout. When he sees a sheep with the legs up, so what happens? Because the legs up, the blood goes down, and within 2 hours, the sheep will die. So the shepherd must also be on the lookout. So even when you talk about that 99 sheep that are found, and then 1 sheep is lost, the owner of the sheep is worried with one thing. Maybe this lost sheep is cast down. The legs are up, and it cannot come on its feet on its own. Because when it is up there, it loses I don't know what word we can use. It can't come on its feet to stand. So the shepherd must look for it, and then he also makes it to stand, allows it to stabilize maybe for 5 minutes, then he carries it. Remember, the wild animals, when they find that the sheep is cut down and is on its own, that is their lucky. That's the best time to attack it. So it is the shepherd and the animals of prey that are interested in the sheep that is cast down. So the sheep here says, He restores my soul. He brings me back to stand on my 2 feet, meaning I can't do it on my own. God lifts us up when we fall. He heals our wounds. He redirects when we are astray. God lifts up when we fall. He heals our wounds and redirects us when astray. The sheep also continue to say, He leads me in paths of righteousness. God doesn't just save us, He also leads us. How does He lead us? How does He lead us? In paths of righteousness, signifying God living, walking in obedience to His will. And all this for His name's sake. The quality of the life of the sheep is tied to the honor of the sheep. Now that is very important. The quality, the way these sheep are looking, is tied to the honor of the sheep. If the sheep are looking well, beautiful, well fed, they can lie down. The one who takes the pride is the shepherd. When the sheep are thin, just bones outside, then it is the reputation of the shepherd that is at stake. That's why he says, the sheep says, He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. When the sheep's life, thank you so much, our technical team. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. In the valley of the shadow of death, when you meet a dog, what can bite you? Is it the dog or the shadow? It's the dog, isn't it? But here the sheep is talking about the shadow. The shadow. The shadow of a dog cannot bite you, and the shadow of death cannot destroy. Death is only a shadow because Christ conquered it. The death that we die is only a shadow because Christ conquered it. We don't have to fear it. It's a sleep. He also talks about the rod and the staff. These are instruments of protection and comfort. A rod and a staff. A shepherd has got in one hand a rod, in the other hand he has got a staff. A rod is for correction. A rod is for discipline. A staff he uses for protection. When a sheep is stubborn, it is the duty of the shepherd to discipline it. A certain tourist in Switzerland was shocked. He was there in the mountains, then he got is it a telescope or a microscope? The one you see things at a distance. It's a telescope. He saw a shepherd, and then when he saw this shepherd in a good pasture land, he saw the sheep that were feeding there, but he was shocked. But there was a sheep that was lying near the shepherd. All the other sheep were feeding, but there was this sheep that was just lying near the shepherd, and he went there. I can see all your sheep feeding across there, but what about this sheep here? And the shepherd looked in the face of the tourist, says, I broke its leg. Then he said, you must be a cruel man. He says, I'm not. This sheep is stubborn. When it strays around, it can be eaten by hyenas and other animals. So I broke its leg, and I'm treating it, and I'm giving it the best treatment. When it is healed, it will be the best sheep. It will be the most obedient sheep. God has got a rod to discipline you. He has got a staff to protect you also. And both must be appreciated. He says, those I love, what do? I chasten. I discipline them. And that is very important for us, for us to note. He says he prepares a table before me, before my enemies. God doesn't just remove our enemies, He blesses us in their presence. He does not just chase our enemies, remove our enemies from our lives, but He blesses us in their presence. While they are watching, God blesses us. Each time I'm counseling people who are about to marry, I ask them a question. Do you know there are people who would be happy if you break your engagement? How many are married here? Don't worry, whether your husband or your wife is around, as long as you are married, you are married. Thank you. Do you know there are some people who would be happy if your marriage breaks? They are there. What will shock you, most of them are your relatives. Yet they would be very happy to hear that your marriage is in pieces. But God says, in the presence of your enemies, I bless you. I'm not only blessing you alone, but he says, my cup overflows. My cup overflows with blessings. On Wednesday, I was called by one of our sisters, says, Pastor, and she was, I could hear the joy in her voice. I'm one of those who wrote a prayer request, and I asked prayed for a job, and I have just been called, I've been given a job, and I'll be given this and that. In the presence of your enemies, he blesses you. And they've got there's nothing that they can do. You anoint my head with oil, representing honor, healing, and the Holy Spirit's presence. The kings in the old were anointed by pouring oil on them, which signified the presence of the Holy Spirit. My cup overflows with blessings. When God provides, it's always in abundance. Have you ever thought about that? When God provides, it's always in abundance. When it is raining, it is pouring. Not like a tap. No, it's pouring. Look at the fruits. It's in abundance. My cup overflows, illustrating God's overwhelming blessings. His grace is abundant, not scarce. It's never scarce. And then in the last illustration, that is very interesting. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me, and I would dwell in the house of the Lord forever. English has got a shortage of words. The words that is there in the original Hebrew language, that goodness and mercy shall chase me. Goodness and mercy shall chase me. All the time, you are being chased. We have heard that we are more used to a house that is haunted, a house that has ghosts and everything bad. But when you are a sheep and the shepherd is looking after you, goodness and mercy chases you. You try to hide, it follows you. That's why John, he could say, the disciple whom Jesus loved. You know that verse there? John usually says, the disciple whom Jesus loved. That is also a misinterpretation from the language. The original language says, the disciple Jesus kept on loving. Despite the mistakes John made, Jesus kept on loving him. And no wonder in John chapter 10, Jesus responds to Psalm 23. Now that is very important, we are closing. In John chapter 10, Jesus responds to Psalm 23. What does he say? I am the good shepherd. The sheep has already talked. Now the shepherd is talking. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep. I know them by name. And I protect them. I have come that they may have life. And they may have this life abundantly. You are a sheep. He is the shepherd. May God bless you.